So we are live. Good
Yes,
morning, everyone.
good
It is another
morning.
when we get to discuss parent-child toxic relationships. And today I'm really, really honored to be with Rechael Mbugwa. She's gonna introduce herself, who she is, what she does, and yeah, we'll get our discussion going from there. If you come in, please remember to say hi. Rachel?
Hi, how are you? My name is Rechael Mbugwa. I am a psychologist by profession, a wife by desire, and a mother by calling. And
Wow.
I'm happy to be in this platform.
Okay. Thank you so much,
Yes.
Rachel, and thank you for accepting this. It's in such a short time. I'm really honored. So today we are going to discuss on the toxic relationship between the parent and the child. And so just to start with the basics, who is a toxic parent?
Daktari, a toxic parent is anyone who manipulates their children. And when you're referring to a relationship between a child and a parent, that's where the parenting comes in. And the danger of toxic or the toxicity indeed happens when one is manipulative, one is driven by selfish desire. So toxic it's any way that you feel manipulated and appreciated. Uh, you're not yourself. Someone else is driving you. So that
Okay.
become toxic. Yes.
Okay. Maybe for example, what's an example of a manipulation like between a child and a parent?
Children are first human before we call them children. And every human has the desire or a design to be able to make their own choices. And that's why you hear, would you like this? No, I would like this. So they have preferences and they also have a will. And the fact that children are human, they have emotions. And that's why you find there are times they smile because they're happy, or they frown because they are sad, or they even cry. So anytime that a parent does not regard those emotions and take action, then there is a feeling of neglect or abuse. And abuse
Mm-hmm.
can happen physically, emotionally, or even sexually. So
Okay.
examples of how one can be able to tell a child is abused by a parent is where either emotionally emotions are neglected, the child can
Mm-hmm.
cry throughout and no one is attending to that child, or
Mm-hmm.
they have no free will. A free will, I mean, I want to go to the washroom. No, you can't go now. We said you have to go twice a day. And as little as that decision is, do you want to imagine how that child will feel when they are peeping on themselves? And if they peep
Yeah.
on themselves, that now becomes a physical abuse.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
become toxic in the smallest way of demonstrating day-to-day activity between a child and a parent. That is
Oh.
abusive. But acknowledging that actually the child want to go to the washroom
Mm.
and helping them go to the washroom, then
Mm.
that's you're offering them, you're allowing them to make the decision and at the same
Mm.
time execute those decisions. So being prevented from making those decisions and I mean in this aspect of it's not justifiable. There are those choices a child want to go and play. You can be able to tell as a parent. You can be able to tell this is good, this is not good.
Yeah.
But like going to the washroom, feeding, you can't feed them the whole day just because you're punishing them, or that is emotional abuse.
Okay. And maybe just is it possible for now a child being toxic to a parent? Like we've heard of now a parent being toxic to a child. What about the other way around?
Yes, because toxicity in parenting comes both ways. Either a parent is toxic to the child or the child can be toxic to the parent. And it's the
Mm.
aspect of manipulation. That's it.
Okay.
Just the
Oh.
aspect of manipulation that the
Mm.
child will demand or blackmail the parents or try to put some or given condition that I cannot be your child if you don't do this. I will not do this because of that is manipulation in any way. Can I give
Mm.
an example of a child manipulating? Mommy, I can't go to school today. I'm not feeling well. So mommy desires that and I take off from work, takes the child to the hospital. The child is tested. There is totally nothing. They come back home, and the child gets well, up and about, playing cartoon, and but that day he or she did not go to school. So in that state, the parent is the one who's been manipulated. Because one, either they've lost the opportunity to go to work or create revenue, and if they were earning on daily basis, that means is a revenue lost, and a
Yeah.
child has made you be at home. So in I'm trying to look at it as the in the example that is relatable and as common as possible.
It's possible.
Yes,
Yeah. Because most of
yes,
us will take that on a very light note. But of course, that's just one of the many very small
mm,
examples. And now
mm,
talking about that, what really makes someone to be toxic? I'm imagining if a child starts acting that way, are there things that might have happened that would push them to behave that way? Or if a parent had acts, being a toxic to their child, are there things that might have happened for them to now become toxic? Because I'm imagining most of the time these things are actually unintentional. As in, I don't
yes,
think
they
there's,
are.
yeah.
No one
So what
sits
are the
down
things
and say today I'm planning.
exactly, yeah.
No one sits down and plan today. I'm planning to show one side of me. They are subconsciously. Let me look at first a child. A child who is toxic, one suffers from attention deficiency, where either you realize, let me give a scenario of you're coming from a separated parent or a single parent whose father lives in a different place. And this child, with time, they have noticed every time you take me to the hospital, daddy shows up.
Okay.
So when the
No.
child is seeking the attention of the father or wants, at times they even want their parent to get together back so that they can be seen frequently, this child will be faking sicknesses depending on how frequent this parent takes the child to the hospital and the frequency at which the father shows up. So
Mm.
the underlying issue between this below this manipulation is one,
Okay.
desire for attention. I
Okay.
give you a different example in what drives the children to be manipulative.
Mm.
Quality time. We have different kind of love language, but there are
Mm.
child who values quality time, and you'll find maybe the parents comes late in the evening when the children either are asleep and leaves
Mm.
very early. So this
Mm.
child never gets to create or to have time with the parent. So you'll
Mm.
find this person this child when the parent comes in, he or she
Mm.
becomes so nagging, crying uncontrollably. This
Mm.
child subconsciously is asking, can you give me time? I just want a
Mm.
quality time. There are
Mm.
others who love language is touch. So they become very clingy. They don't want to be left. They're holding you. So,
Mm.
and some is because maybe the house help or the nanny that was left with the child is physically abusing the child or torturing. So
Mm.
you'll find that the child is also looking for help, screaming for help by holding you, especially when you're trying to go. Like if you're leaving and you find that your child does not find it easy saying goodbye. And I
Mm.
don't mean when you have a new nanny. I mean after you've been with a good nanny for a period of time
Yeah.
and everything
Mm.
was just okay. Then all of a sudden, when the child realizes you're leaving, they become
Mm.
very clingy. So at times that
Mm.
appears as manipulation, but there's underlying issue is because of the pain or the desire to have quality time or to be held. I just want to be cuddled, to
Mm.
be with you, or they are
Mm.
seeking for your time. The other
Okay.
aspect is parents becoming toxic to children. What would be the
Yeah.
underlying issue? We
Mm.
learn from our own. Like
Mm.
you just become as your mother because that is
Yeah.
all you knew.
It's
You
true.
cook ugali or you provide to your children the meals that,
Mm.
and this contributes very high because if your parent used to chastise you using a cane and maybe the caning was extreme, now
Mm.
you're wondering, you're comparing the way you were chastised then time and now how you're beating them and saying, you guys don't know. Us, we were beaten and you never died. You guys don't know. Us, we used to fetch water, to do what, and now here
Yeah.
you're just seated and you cannot even remove a cup of. So they are coming from a point of where they've been brought up. How was
Mm,
their parenting done? And that
mm,
is how you become. So
mm,
as you said, toxic relationship, it's never planned, but it has subconscious. Others is because either those parents are going through abusive relationship with their spouse, but they are covering it up in the name of protecting the family. So this
mm,
lady or this man is so angry inside there, and because he cannot fight physically with the spouse, the anger is poured out to the children. The other aspect is career wise. If you're brought up by a military dad or a military mom, they
mm,
give orders and there is no negotiations. So the
mm,
toxicity comes in when if you don't receive those orders and they are given, then
mm,
you will feel your privacy is infringed, you have no choice of your own. And those
mm.
are two scenarios where a parent become toxic, not out of choice, out of background, career, and current situation in terms of relationship that they're having with their partners.
Mm. Oh, wow, that's interesting. And what about, sorry, what about that thing of I like the fact you pointed about the relationships. Sorry, the relationships, because currently we are having major issues in marriage setups, and sometimes most ladies will cling on to a relationship because of the relationship they have with the like for the kids. They'll say, I'll have to stay here because of my kids, I'll have to stay here because of my kids. So when should someone actually draw a line so that at the end of the day they don't lose themselves and the kids because of this kind of relationship?
I think society has been very harsh on those families that are living separately, and also have created that ideal relationship is where everyone from outside says is okay, regardless of what is inside. I would ask parents to disregard the outward appearance and to agree to feel what is in their shoes. Because the person who's feeling the pain is a parent, not the outsiders.
It's
So
true.
if we agree that this is what I'm feeling, then we can be able to make a decision. Nevertheless, there are other conditions that make that parent still stay in the relationship. Not that necessarily how people will say or what people will say. There are other conditions that maybe that person has been brought up from a single parent, and he sweared with their lives that I will never allow my children to go through what I went through, because maybe he saw the mom or the dad struggle through alone. They went through intimidations and bullying in school. You're never brought by your dad or your mom. And so those are other underlying issues that make someone to sit in that kind of a setup, regardless of the toxicity that is in that relationship. The other one is the aspect of feeling like, what will I tell my children? So where is their father? Or what will I tell my children? Where is their mother? So you could not work out things as adult. So those questioning, one will feel it is hard to answer them despite them desiring to have a relationship work. The other one is, I would love my children to have a holistic family. And a holistic family here, they're defining a father and a mother. And
Mm,
what they forget is, as much as you want a holistic family, you're barely speaking to each other. And
yeah,
they can tell. If there is
yes,
anything that is very loud in communication, is silence.
it's true. It's
So they
very
can actually tell mom is not speaking to dad, and mostly you're the one who even involved them. Go tell your father there's no food. The child
mm,
rushes and go tell your mother I have no money.
mm,
So as much as the communication is broken, I want you to look at two areas that are highly affected. You're looking at your child having a holistic family, but they end up having a broken understanding of how marriage works. One, because they will feel mom and dad never talks. They use me as a
mm,
mediator. So they will think marriages ought to be like that. So you're
mm,
damaging their beliefs and their faith in understanding marriage.
mm,
Two, you guys hardly have a family union or have family activity together. Like for instance, those children will never have time to quality time with their father and their mother as a unit, despite you saying you want a holistic family. So they're either with their dad, either washing the car or doing the boys' things, or they have a date or outing, or you're either with them. And when you're with them, you're angry. So you're shouting everywhere. And when they're with their dad, they're being shouted at. What are you doing here? Go look for something. Because even every like the partners here are looking for peace in their own ways. So the mother will be looking for peace when cooking and does not want distraction, while the children want that time with them and they're being sent. At the end of it, you'll find everyone is sending those children away from whichever side and they're left in the middle. So are we ideally having a holistic family? I don't. Are they being fulfilled emotionally? No. You're creating an emptiness that they are not being able to be satisfied, both from you and also your partner. Physically, they feel abused because when you shout at a child, when you make noise because of a plate of spilling milk, it is so petty, but you've destroyed this child's belief and faith. The other thing is that we learn emotional intelligence from family setup, not in school. How you express yourself and how you behave when you're feeling sad, happy, and how then can you be able to become better. Because there's them that only cries, and you teach that child you only cry when you're in pain, or you only cry at this time, and you don't cry in screaming. So we teach our children emotional intelligence and in this dysfunctional family, we destroy their intelligence in terms of emotions. Because we hardly tell them how to behave. Because even the parent themselves, they're shouting. They hardly know that this is how I should be training. And with time, those children start shouting. It becomes a shouting match. So why is a matchbox? Look at it the other side. So why did you put it? Now, those children are becoming worse than they would have been if you were living separately and managing each of everyone's emotions. And when you meet, you're able to have something to offer to those children. So in relation to those toxic family, and in bringing up those children, I would think the setup is not favorable.
Okay, I think we have to really, we have to really normalize the use of psychologists and counselors, especially in our marriage. There's a lot going on, and usually what I say is, if the two of you cannot really have a meaningful communication, please go see a counselor just to bring sanity. Just even in that conversation, so that at the end of the day, you have a third eye who can really be a neutral perspective on whatever you guys are arguing about. Now we are adults, we are grown up, we are now the parents. Is there a way we can tell a mom or dad watching us, maybe they came from a toxic parent? Is there a way, like what things will be coming out of them that could be indicated that they actually were raised in a toxic family or in a by a toxic parent?
The first one, it's emotional management. How do you manage your emotions? If currently in your work environment, someone would say, when you're talking to Daktari, you have to be careful. You're walking on eggshells. Means your anger management has a problem. And I mean a problem because you're not able to, when you're touched, you explode. And at times what has made you explode, the magnitude is not related to what has happened. You were just asked, Daktari, why were you late today? You say, it's none of your business. Now you've become to micromanage me.
Yes, stay on your lane.
So you can actually tell your anger, your ability to manage anger has a problem. That tells you there's something toxic that happened to you, and not necessarily the upbringing. It can be also the relationship you were in prior to you getting settled. Because and the relationship also mean work environment. You may have worked in a place that the boss used to keep pushing you. And also, when you realize you take any criticism personal. And I'm sorry to say, people are not able to differentiate issues and people. They end up attacking the people without addressing the issue. So you will find even in workplaces, even in families, as you're looking at family, hardly were you addressed as a person, you were addressed as an issue.
Yeah.
So you will tell, like, for instance, if I want to address some given behavior, Daktari, I don't like the way you make your report. I'm addressing you and I'm saying it is you that you don't make report. But if I want to address the issue, it's like, Daktari, the report you gave me seemed to have missed 1, 2, 3. And you know, Daktari, if I address you, you will come defensive and you will fight for your life. And that's why you find in the office, in the marriages, it's more of a cat fight. No, me, don't always do those reports. This is the only report that had a mistake. So what the hell can't you agree that we... And you curse and make all those angry, but it's because someone has come for you. The other one is bullying in school. You'll find maybe you have come from a very stable family. You were not in a toxic parenting kinda, but you were taken in a boarding school and you realize school was the biggest time of, you spent the biggest time of your life interacting with other people. You are either bullied because you're big or small, or because you're brilliant, or because you struggled with academic. So in one or the other, the teachers or the father figure or the parent figure that were represented in the school became your defining moment. And those moments are so hurting because everyone who, it looks like a wound. Anyone who's trying to come near that hurt, you're very defensive. So I would say, if you find yourself anger, you're not able to manage your anger, or anything that is said, it's personal. You've been wounded before, and every time is someone you see nearing your wound, you're skeptical, or you run away, or you become defensive in that. So that's how parents today can be able to tell whether they were affected by that.
Oh, wow, that's okay. I think then most of us somehow, somewhere, we've encountered some toxic people, toxic parents, and even maybe we've been in toxic relationships with people, maybe not once, maybe not once, maybe you're even there right now. So, talking of the toxic parent, okay, you are now an adult. You see, you cannot break a relationship with your parent. You don't choose your parent. You find yourself like, this is your mom, this is your dad. So how do you deal with them without really, I don't know if you can say without hurting them, or is that, or while you still maintain your sanity? Because as you said, it's walking on eggshells, but at the end of the day, these are your parents. So how do you deal with that? Yeah.
I would first highlight the current tactic that people use: avoidance or running away. Probably most of the people ended up in another city because they didn't want anything to do with their parents.
Yeah.
And for sure that does not solve the problem, because you will feel like those parents are nagging you. Every time they call, you feel, hey, Kwani, they're not, even here, they're looking for me. They try and tell you, can you host one of your family members? You don't want anything to do with them. So a technique of running away or avoidance does not work. So how then do we address this? If you're already injured, I don't ask you to go for a battle. An injured warrior does not go back to battle. And when I mean a battle, I mean because you've been with this parent, you know how they behave. You know how, because manipulative or toxic parent, what they do, they change the story to fit their narratives. Yeah. An example is, Daktari, nowadays you don't visit me, you know I'm even sick, you know the other time you never brought what. And at the end of the day, you end up feeling it's the other person who is more needy than, and the person who is feeling that I'm being coerced to go visit my mom is already injured in that I don't feel like being in that environment. So you rather send an M-Pesa than physically going. So I always recommend that you who feel have been in such a toxic relationship, you first seek healing before you go to confront or to address or say, Mom, you offended me in hearing. Yeah. You first seek help. So when you're able and stable enough, then we can be able to look for ways we can be able to approach this. And unfortunately, if you're coming from a military kind of setup parent or old school, you notice there is a generational difference. And there is a
Yeah.
reasons why they did what they did. As I highlighted before, some is because of how they were brought up, some because of their careers, other is because of their environment. It's also important we put in consideration what would have been the cause that your mom or your dad made you do whatever you did and you felt it was not right. So also considering what made them behave the way they behaved, it also gives you an understanding. I didn't know this is what she was going through. You mean she was being abused? I didn't
Yeah.
know. So there is an aspect of one, understanding self and healing. Two, understanding the other party and the causes why they went through that. And three, now having a negotiation. And a negotiation is coming from understanding that this is how I felt. And because I felt this, I don't know why, mom, that happened. And maybe your mom or your dad will tell you, I didn't notice. I was going through a lot. You know, that time I had just retired and I didn't have a job, and you guys were asking, and I was wondering, why are you staying idle when you can go farming? So you're not speaking from a point of pain or from a point of blame game. The other aspect, it is the how. Respect is shown by how you express yourself, not what you say. You may say something that is very respectful, but how you say it ends up ruining your relationship with your parent. So if you have to have a conversation with your parent, it is in the how you say it. And in how I mean, let's address the issue, not the person. You know, mom,
Yeah.
you always used to make us, you're accusing her, and she will sit back and say, no, but you guys never did anything. I had to push you. So it becomes more of blame games instead of agreeing to disagree or explaining or getting to understand this is how I felt. Let me give an example. Let's say, for instance, your parent made you cook for your siblings, do the house chores, and you felt this is child labor. And you no longer want to interact with your siblings because you felt like from their birth all along you've been the one taking care of them, or like you feel I've never been taken care of by anyone, so you're avoiding them. How you can address that is like, mom or dad, you know, when I was bringing up the other siblings, I felt lonely and loaded. Why? Because you used to leave for work and leave me with other three siblings. I have to feed them and prepare myself and still go to school. By the end of the day, I was so tired. And in the evening, I had to come and wash them, wash their uniform, cool, and that really made me feel oppressed or feel you expressing your feeling. When you express your feeling, the other party feels the ability to say, I'm sorry, or I didn't know that is how it made you feel. Or even explain on my end, this is what was happening. So if you express how you feel, then no one can deny and say that is not how you feel.
Yeah.
No, you can't feel that. That is not how you feel. No, you are expressing how you're feeling. So as we've said, how represent respect. How you say it, explain the respect. So those are three aspects that a person can be able to reach out. Seek for help first, then seek to understand where was the other party coming from. And the final one is how do I express myself in regards to respecting the parents. And at times you realize you may not be able to amend or create or because some of these things you cannot reverse and change. The only thing that is healing here is your heart.
Yeah.
So some of you realize that by just going through therapy, you healed and your relationship with your parent was reconciled without necessarily telling them what happened. Those are some scenarios. Other scenarios, you realize you had a conversation with your parent and it was you came to the understanding of what was happening and you healed. But it has to start somewhere, understanding
Yeah.
yourself.
Okay. So how can we make it? For example, the example that you just gave us of like, okay, I'll just use my own example. I'm a firstborn. We're a family of three children. I have two younger brothers, and as you said, with me, like I was the big sister. So somehow I just had to make sure the home was in order, everything, everyone was in order. And really, that's how my life has always been. So my question is now, maybe for any other child, a girl or a boy who is in my shoes right now, how do we really make them not feel they're being used by maybe the parents and the siblings to make sure that everyone is at peace? How can, because at the end of the day, it's true somehow the firstborn, or maybe it's not, we can just also address that. Is it it's true that the firstborn somehow has to bear most of the I wouldn't the weight, most of the weight of the family, especially setting an example, how you're gonna live, how you're gonna run your life. Somehow that's expected by the society. So how do we make this firstborn not to be emotionally drained as he does that? And how do we make sure that actually if you are 3, you're 5, you're 10, each child takes up their own responsibility in this family setup and also as they grow older, so that to keep up the relationship and also their mental health well?
Neema, I would confirm firstborns are normally the first, they co-parent other children with their parents. So it's especially in our African culture or African practices. But it's because you're the first people to help.
Yeah.
And at times they never know that actually the weight is so much. They're never treated as children. And it feels nice to be a child. And at times, firstborn, they were never given a chance to be a child. And when they become adult, they are so resentful, either of children or responsibility. Why? They were already tired prior to their age of having the ability to carry the load that were put on their shoulders. Then, how then do we become better parents in future? I think if we would look at it categorically, the kind of work that you were given then, may it be nursing or having to do house chores, if your parents would calculate the kind of effort and time that it took you to do it, hiring someone to come and do it, they would have just done it with 2 hours, and the cost would have been affordable. Let me say affordable because it varies from one person to another. So, for instance, that firstborn ought to have washed the utensils, cleaned the house, cleaned the children, and cook and feed them. So if I'm to get a person to come and assist for that particular weekend, because mostly you'll find either you are going to school, so that day that you're not going to school, that's when you will do all that. If someone was to come and assist, and by someone I mean a nanny or a day bag or someone, house manager who will just come in, he will not finish even by 3 hours. He shall have washed the utensils, the house, and what the cost implication that you've incurred as a parent, you've saved your child from going through that kind of feeling of the load is on being placed on them. I don't mean that they should not work. Children should work. The second alternative is the children are older enough that they can be able to do tasks. Sit down with them and say, in this house, we eat because we prepare, we live here because it's clean, and we operate in this environment because we are able to access things that are clean. So for us to be here as a family, we need to allocate duties. So if they are older enough that one can be able to sweep, the other one can be able to wash the utensils, the other one can be able to help in cooking, then equally divide the job. And the job that cannot be done by them, take it up as a parent and do it. Like washing clothes or a heavy kind of duty that you feel this person is feeling, this is too much for me. Take it up yourself or have someone assist in that. In that, you shall have helped the children learn to do their own chores without necessarily depending on someone else to come and do it. And also you've gotten help yourself. That's the second thing that you can be able to help in doing it. The other one is doing it together. There's a difference between your parent ordering you to ensure that nikirudi, I find that everything has been done, and sitting down and say, today, as me and you, we have 1, 2, 3 tasks to do. Which one would you like us to start with? The child gets excited because this is where you create bonding. I would give an example of a father and a son taking that opportunity to clean that car instead of taking it to a car wash. This is a bonding time. This is where your son will ask you, Daddy, where did you get this car? Normally, where do you get the car? Or how comes this car is red and the other one is blue? It's a moment of interaction. So if you choose to do it together, you've killed two birds at the same time. Work is done and you've created a bonding environment.
So I think it's very important. I always say it's not that we tell kids not to work, but the tasks have to be age appropriate. Because at the end of the
Correct.
day, you don't really want to repeat what your parents did to you or did not do to you. And yes,
Mm,
it's true parenting has no manual, but trust me, if you want to become a better parent, you need to start reading about parenting.
yes.
Now, go
Yes.
to the next thing. How do we break the cycle? Like, okay, so I was raised this way, and clearly that's not how I would want to raise up my kids. So what are the steps? What do I do? Is there a place I can learn from? How do I really break this cycle? Like, I just want to be the best parent my kids can ever have.
And I think that is the desire of every parent, even our own parents, even the ones that are toxic, their desire was becoming better than they were before. And as you
Yeah.
said, learning never stops. And unfortunately, these courses are never taught in school.
Yeah.
So it becomes even hard to tell that how do I tell that I'm emotionally stable to be able to. So if we are to become better, we first, because our children mirrors who we are. And you realize between the formative years of a child, that is 0 to 10 years, you are their hero. And when a hero fails, it means that generation of theirs has already failed because seeking out somewhere else becomes so hard. And also, the world does not give us those best mentors that your children can be able
Mhm.
to say, my mom or my dad has failed, then I can pick up another person. So that
Mm.
means if you are not the best yourself, producing the best becomes hard. So I start by asking parents that once we get emotionally intelligence, and emotional intelligence is how you manage your happiness, your excitement, your promises, your how do you manage yourself. Don't tell children to do what you don't do.
It's true.
Let's let's do it by our own examples, leading by our own examples. Two, there's what you've put, you cut yourself for, and what you've cut yourself, you cut for your children. How do I say? Uh, at times, the parent wants their children to achieve what they failed to achieve. So you're not allowing these children to become who they are or who they ought to be. You're forcing them to be what you didn't achieve. So if you need to change the narrative, is to get to understand. And as I said, children are human beings before we classify them as dependent. Because children, when you say children, you mean more of a dependent.
Mm.
But if understanding this is a holistic person who is dependent on their own, it is for you to seek to understand what are their capabilities, what are their desires, where do they desire to be, and how can I make them achieve that. We move from selfish self to them.
Mm.
Now, we will stop pushing children to do courses that we felt we would have done, or we'll stop pushing children to become what we ought to have achieved. If I didn't manage to get to Form 4, I'm pushing my children. You have to get to Form 4. You have to. And I don't mean education is wrong, but I mean at times the motive is so selfish that the only thing you
Mm.
feel achieved is because your child has achieved that. So
Mm.
understand these children are their own, they have their own identity away from what you're trying to impose. The other one is
Mm.
nurture, nurture them in, I
Mm.
mean, this is where you feel they're headed to. Give them that warmth. The
Mm.
hostility, the anger from work, the pain from your relationship, they're only hindrances for them. So I've said, be a good example by yourself, that the actions you're doing will actually say, I love my dad and my dad is my role model. Two, stop pushing your own agenda. That if you do not achieve to become an engineer, you're pushing your child to become an engineer. And I have nothing wrong with academic, but I mean even in the how they manage their anger. You may find one child is quiet while the parent is a hyper person, and those are different personalities from the same parent. But if you force the
Yeah.
quiet person to manage their emotion the way you manage yours, you're being selfish. So allow them to
Yeah.
be who they are. So it is for parents to learn their children, not their children to learn the other way around. Otherwise, you're duplicating identity. It's like you're making photocopies. And unfortunately, if you make photocopies
Yeah.
of yourself who is wounded and angry, then you will not have good outcome in that.
Yeah, that's true. All right. Now, having said that, what happens when you, the lady, maybe came from a toxic parent, and now your spouse, who's also like you have a baby together, didn't come from it? How do you make sure that you are able to co-parent your kids, whether in a family setup or maybe you're separated, but
In a
unfortunately one of
separate.
you, yeah. How do you how I think that takes a lot of energy and emotional intelligence, I guess. How do you really do that? So that at the end of the day you bring up a child who is whole, not broken or not biased more to one parent than the other.
I think I will look at it in two perspectives, from the person who has come from a toxic family and also from a person who has come from a very untoxic or stable family. Starting with the one who've come
Mm,
from a toxic family, co-parenting with this person who seem to have a clear understanding of parenting or does not have the past pains, because toxicity
mm,
brings a lot of past pain.
mm,
Self-awareness is very important, because you see, this person from a toxic family, normally
mm,
tunasemanga they have an emptiness that they are seeking to fill in, and they don't
yeah.
know what to fill it in with. For instance, if your toxicity made you feel rejected, every
Mm,
time you come to a new relationship you will feel like they're rejecting you. So for instance, if they you missed the bus, you start saying that driver does not even love me, the emptiness is because it's coming from an aspect of rejection. So
yeah.
this person who have this emptiness comes to this relationship and finds out I'm feeling unwanted. So every time
Mm,
they keep questioning, do you really love me? If you really love me, you would have bought me. If you really love me, you would have. Now, the emptiness has turned to be manipulative. You're trying to fill in the emptiness, but
mm,
the way you're doing it is manipulative. So there's an aspect of the toxic you felt bringing it in this relationship. How do
mm,
you do that? Only from self awareness, understanding I think I'm trying to fill in something that I missed when I was younger. It could be attention, it could be the feeling of rejection, it could be never appreciated. So you never felt enough. You were
sorry.
never enough by yourself.
Mm,
So for the people that are from a toxic relationship, getting to
mm,
understand themselves, and that is self-awareness, helps so much that the other person does not feel you're manipulating, because there's a higher tendency
mm,
of them manipulating both the
mm,
spouse and the children as they try to fill in their emptiness. So how
mm,
can they be able to survive in this? Getting to question the way they do things. Questioning yourself gives you ability to become aware of, by the way, why do I do things the way I do them? And the
mm,
answer is it for my selfish gain or is it for others? The other one
mm,
is they come with an understanding of their way is the only right way. So if they
mm,
used to place, maybe for instance, they came from a very strict family that things were done in a given order. When they come to this relationship, they come with that authoritative ordering around. You cannot sit down and not
mm,
straighten your seat. You cannot wake up and not stretch your bed. You cannot
mm,
drink and leave your cup there. Yes, the rules are good,
mm,
but the extremes they push people, they seem like they are policing everyone in their house. So the effect of that is because they bring that notion as a plain truth to the current relationship, affecting both their partners and the children. So it has effect. Looking at it from the person who've come from a very good, stable family and have either married into a person who have been emotionally abused or physically or toxic parenting, things are hard. And most of the times they cave in because the pressure those things comes with, like, I want peace. If peace means aligning everything, they end up doing that. And unfortunately, they end up now feeling abused because they're never given a point or room to be themselves, to enjoy their freedom. At times, they're even made to feel that before you married, you knew nothing. You didn't know how to wash your hands. When you get in, go wash your hands. Okay, remove the socks. Now you finished. Now time for eating. Sit upright. So they are made to feel like they didn't know anything by themselves. They are learning it again. And for the sake of peace, they shelve in and they don't question. What would I ask them to do? They can recommend to see a counselor. And in that, the point you're able to point out. The reason why you feel you're being intimidated in this is because you want peace. And because you've come from a very stable family, you're looking for joy in a family. I look forward to that day we'll sit down and eat together without someone asking, what is that you're wearing? How did you come for dinner with pajama? How did you, what is it that, without such kind of environment? For them that are in separate areas where the father or the spouse are differently. So children meet to interact with the sober parent and they also get to interact with. That will mean your children will need to be seeing a therapist regularly, meaning they have to keep learning and unlearning, because the environment is different. When they are with a stable parent, they are taught morals and values. When they go on the other side, they are told nothing, like the boundaries are not there, there's neglect, the emptiness. But there's something also that happened to the children. They're able to tell which side they appreciate more. And that's why you'll find children will incline on one side more. But unfortunately, for the children that feel that they have also not gotten the attention or the need, they get to rebel and they will pick the negative side as a way of vengeance or showing their pain. So when I mean the children need to see therapists, is I mean if you have 3 siblings, 2 may take the good side, 1 may take the other side. So when all of them come for therapy, we are able to remove the negative values as well as train them on how to develop coping mechanism in those 2 different environments. For couples that are living together and they're in this environment, we encourage them to come for therapy. And we also do family therapy where the parent, the children are all together and we're able to reconcile and get to know why is it that you're not having peace in the house and what can we do to enjoy the peace. And what is the correct way to do things? Is it mom's way or dad's way or the children way? And we get a way forward for them. But it's a tricky situation. It's a tricky situation.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, I think that means when you're in your dating and courting stages, I think would you recommend for people to just go see a counselor just so that they're able to understand how their background and their future will one day marry or will one day catch up with them?
Nema, I offer premarital counseling. Premarital counseling, these are people that are preparing to, or they are dating, and they're looking at what are the ways. And you will tell some of the relationship people have conflict prior to even them settling down. But when they come through these sessions, we are able to help them to understand themselves better, not actually to gauge whether you will work, this relationship will work or it will not work. That is not the intention. The intention is to help to understand self prior to you merging together and making a unique identity of this marriage. And I would recommend people to come. It's not because we are telling you whether this will work or not. I think most of the people think that now akituambia it does not work, does it mean we end our relationship? But it's more of one, getting to know yourself and getting to know your partner. and weighing
Mm,
yourself to see how much unlearning do I have to do or how much learning do I have to do. The other thing is to
mm,
prepare you for what is ahead. There is love
mm,
dovey experience when you're dating, but the reality on the ground is that you are taking up a responsibility of someone else's life, not only your spouse, but also you're
mm,
introducing children in this union. How then do you handle that? And I'm not just mentioning children,
mm.
you're also being introduced to other families, like the in laws. These are people that, and not only in laws, you're also introducing your finances, either your lack of management of the finances or your management of the same. So I recommend people to come for the premarital counseling. But even if you're now married and you're having those conflicts, please come. We also have couples therapy where we help people to understand what is their source of conflict and how best can they resolve their issue and still maintain those relationships.
Okay, thank you so, so much. I've learned 1,001 things today, and I'll try my best to put them into practice. So, where do we find you if now we need these services?
I am on all social media. If you Google psychologist Rechael Mbugwa, you'll get all the details. But my office is based in Westlands, along Professor Saitoti Road, opposite Kipro Center. You can make a call and reach me through that. So if you search my name on all social media or Google, you'll get my contact. And I would say, come, please come, let's find solution. Don't be sick alone. Come and we walk this journey together. From my own experience, most of the issues that you're going through is because of daddy wounds or mommy wounds or parent wounds, things that were caused when you're growing up. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity even to interact and to be with you and to be of help to you. In case you have any question, feel free to reach me throughout my social media. Thank you.
Hi. Sorry, I don't know
Hi.
what happened. So you are telling us where can we find you?
My office is based in Westlands, along Professor Saitoti Road, just next to Kipro Center. But if you
Mm,
search my name, psychologist Rechael Mbugwa, you'll be able to find the direction on the map, and also you'll be able to get my contact. But feel free to reach out. My number is 0728 another 28 4187. I repeat
okay.
again,
Mm.
0728 another 28 4187. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much, Rachel. I'm really honored and so humbled to have accepted in such a short notice. And I'm sure we'll do this so many more times. Thank you. And
Welcome.
everyone,
Awesome.
you want to say anything as your last
Bye
comment?
bye.
All right, Sawa.
I would
Thank
say
you.
yes.
And
I would say from my own practice, I realized most of the issues that people are dealing with, even in the workplace, is a result of parent wounds, or you say daddy wounds, mommy wounds. But these are upbringing, the way you were brought up. And if you're able to
mm,
deal with it, you become better parents, you become better employees or employers, even in our
mm,
work environment, even in the relationship that you're engaging in. Thank you.
mm.
Wishing you are healed, and my desire is to have you go through healing and successfully become a better person.
Okay, thank you so much. It is always a pleasure and have a beautiful, beautiful week ahead. Bye bye.
Bye bye.